Hello everyone and welcome to the car profile, and as you can tell by the title and the car in front of you, it's the Aston Martin Group 3 car this week, and we did the Alpha last time. Aston Martin this time, completely different car, front engined, rear wheel drive, 509 brake horsepower, so very different in terms of where the weight is in the car, and obviously that's going to have an impact on the track tests, and trust me, this is an interesting test. So as per usual, we're going to look at the 5 different tracks, then we'll look at the spreadsheet where the Aston Martin fits in, and let's kick off with Brands Hatch. So as I say, we start with 5 tracks. These are the tracks which I think all have sort of unique characteristics in themselves, which will help determine whether the cars are not BoPed correctly, or whether a car needs increasing in power or weight, or decreasing in power and weight. So as you can see on the right hand side, we've had a fair few 23.0s, and again we're looking at optimal lap time. Now stupidly I forgot to put it to sessions best bottom right, however after the session it does give you your actual session best, so don't panic, we'll have a look at that after the lap. We didn't sort of look at that in the Alpha, but we're going to look at that a bit more in detail in this one, and we will going forward. As we come up to this corner, obviously we've done the Aston Martin Group 3 car at Brands Hatch a lot, bearing in mind our team versus team was here, so we do understand, like, this is the combo I expected that it would be a bit unfair on all the other cars. However, it is slower than the Alpha at this track, so it's obviously not too bad. The difference between the end time and the optimal time is very similar to the Alpha as well, so we're obviously doing something right with the test to get this result. Anyway, we're coming around the last corner now, and we're heading towards, you see my face there, just a bit of an awkward slide there on the last corner, going towards the start finish line, and we get a 22.9. Again though, we're not going to look at fastest lap, it's optimal, and our optimal is a 122.6 there. As you can see, I did start another lap, which is why you can't see the first and second sectors. As I say, you do a minimum of 10 on this, and then if I feel I need to do an extra lap or two because some time is really missing and it should be there, then I do it. Obviously you can always go faster in these, but it's just around 10 laps in the car at each of these 5 tracks. And of course we're at Dragon Trail now, so Dragon Trail tests the curb usage. Obviously you use curbs quite a lot. In the Alpha, the Alpha absolutely hated curbs. You touch curbs, it went flying. In the Aston Martin, it doesn't mind curbs. You can abuse them all you want in the Aston Martin. So it's a really key strength here in this car is curbs. As we continue on in the fast sections, sorry if you heard my mouse clicking there, just making sure I've got my comments up on the left hand side, and you'll see them after as well. As you can see, we're abusing all the curbs here, and we're pushing on towards this right-hander. As we come down to this right-hander, obviously in the Alpha it was quite easy to put the power down in that car, with it being an MR car. We just have to delay a little bit longer. One thing I have noticed is that there seems to be a little bit more grip offline than online, and we're doing this in time trial mode, so do bear that in mind on that corner. I don't think you could put the power down quite as fast as I did there in this car. We've obviously been a bit more consistent here than we were in the Alpha. Obviously, as I say, it didn't like curbs, so the Alpha was all over the place at this track, and we did the fastest lap early on. In this one, it's lap number 8 we've done it. Obviously, I keep trying to push the cars further and further as I get to the end of the 10th lap, and then if there is time there, like a big chunk, I will go for it. But as we come to the start-finish line, it's a 37.0, and that's actually what our optimal is as well. You can see the optimal there. So our fastest lap was on lap 8, and then on lap 9, we sort of went faster in the last sector. So, Interlagos. This is going to test the undulations. So how does the car react to undulations in the track? Obviously it's up and down. We sort of tested that a bit at Brands, but Brands is a very fast track. It's very constant in 3rd and 4th gear. Interlagos, a bit more technical. We've got more ups and downs, especially on the intersection. We also test curbs here, so it's well worth doing. Now, because it's a front-engined rear-wheel drive car, what you find in this car is that it doesn't like undulations as much as the Alpha, and the reason is the weight is all over the front. There's not a lot of weight on the rear of the car, and just coming into here, this is where my one mistake is on this lap into this corner. There is another 10th there, but I could be there all day trying to get that 10th. But yeah, as I say, the weight in the car, so and this corner as well, so obviously the weight's going downhill. it's very sketchy here as you put the power down. So you just got to be careful there. Obviously the weight's moving all the time, but it's all over the front end of the car, so you do have to be careful. Again, we're coming to this left-hander. It's a bit more stable on this part of the track. So in the Alpha, the car started getting very loose there. In the Aston Martin, it's not as loose. Coming into this left-hander, again, you can abuse curbs a little bit more. And with this car not being turbocharged, it's a naturally aspirated V12 engine, and not a lot of weight on the rear where the power is going. What you find is the car spins up a lot, and a heck of a lot as well, so you've got to be careful when putting the power down in this car. In fact, traction control may very well help, and as you see, our fastest lap is actually also our optimal, so we were pretty much there at that track. I do think there's another 10th in the middle sector, but it's a large middle sector. Get that right, it's going to be tricky. Now Nurburgring, you're thinking, what the hell, lap number 2? This is where the car, and this is my biggest surprise with this car and the test on all these tracks, struggled. I'm not even kidding. The car absolutely struggled. So there's loads of time in this first sector on this lap, and as I say, we look at optimal. So the optimal, we don't look at fastest, we look at optimal. I'll just give you the fastest lap to give you an idea of how I'm driving the car. So if I'm driving the car wrong, you can tell me, and perhaps might look at it again, especially with, say, for example, a Corvette C7, as I found out in GT Planet thread today. That's obviously you change in the middle of the tachometer rather than full on blow the engine out as you do in a natural aspirated car. Anyway, back to this car and this track. The way the gearing is for this track, the Aston Martin struggles, like really struggles. So for example, this hairpin down here, you really want to be sort of high end of first, but you can't because you're hitting the limiter. So when you're in second, the minute you put the power down, the car just wants to spin and spin its wheels fast. It's obviously got a lot of torque in there, especially in the lower end, and you'll find it's very unstable. So every time I came to that hairpin, for example, I struggled. I really struggled. Coming to here, I'm in third gear, but I'm very low in the rev range again, and especially on this second part, I'm very low. So the car again becomes unstable. As you can see it twitching. Very hard car to drive here. That was the sort of eye-opener here of how risky this car is to drive here. With the power band and the way it is with the car, do be careful with your gear choices. If you want to be in a higher end of the gears, I would be if I were you. That just stops the torque. Obviously there's not as much power at that point, you're not gaining as much speed, however you're gaining stability, so be careful with that. This is a 155.6. Our optimal goes down to a 155.2, and you can see the variances there. And as I said, I did 12 laps. You can see how varying my lap times were there. 56s, 57s, 55s at the end as I finally got it nailed. Very sketchy car at Nurburgring. Finally, Suzuka. Not as bad at Suzuka. Obviously, we've raced here. We won we didn't win the Manufacturers' Cup, sorry. We came second in the Manufacturers' Cup overall in the Aston Martin here at this track. So I was expecting to, again, be quite quick here. Obviously, I've done this combo before. Building up the laps, you can see on the right side, 59s is very common. We're not doing too bad here either. Didn't struggle as much as I did at Nurburgring in this car. I can abuse curbs in this car. Struggled a little bit here, a slight bit of understeer. Got to be careful. Of course, if you go too wide there, you get pulled into the gravel. That happened once. In fact, it might have been the prior lap to this, a 205. As I say, I keep pushing the cars until I hit the limit. Coming through Tidgney 2 now, heading towards the sector time. You can see we're slightly up here. As I say, no troubles with the car. The only issue you have, and we're going to experience it here actually, I'm in second gear. It's very sketchy. So you can see me on the wheel. I'm constantly trying to adjust the car to stop it losing the rear end. Because I'm at the bottom end of second gear, top end of first gear is just too high. You hit the limiter straight away. If you go to second, that will also lose the rear of the car. So no gear change is better than a gear change. It's very sketchy in the low end of the gear, so be careful when using this car. So obviously we do a risk indicator for these cars, and I've always said the Aston Martin likes to kill you. Not so much offline as it does online, however, depending on your gear choice, you're really going to have to watch out. Obviously with the Alpha, it was a lower risk indicator because it's only curbs that are affecting it, and you can avoid curbs. You can't avoid putting the power down in this thing. Traction control may help, as I said a bit earlier, but I've put a risk indicator of 8 on this car because it really is a bit sketchy in the power band depending on where you accelerate. That was a 58.9, and as you can see, my optimal there is 58.8. You can obviously go faster, as I say, I keep saying this, but at this point that's what we've got. And there you see the big old spreadsheet. So we've got the Aston Martin, their same top end speed at Suzuka, weirdly. I might have to pick a different place if the air resistance is causing too much of an issue there, or perhaps a bit earlier on the straight to get a speed trap. The power, it's 111% power in the Aston Martin, and then 104% on the weight. And as you see by the times, overall it's 1.2 seconds down on the Alpha across all 5 tracks, and it's slower on every single track, which was the biggest surprise to me, because I was expecting it to be quicker perhaps at Nurburgring, and definitely at Suzuka. Oh, and also at Dragon Trail, because Dragon Trail's a speed track, as well as abusing curbs. Obviously the Alpha didn't like curbs, Aston did. It's a speed track, but the Aston was slower. Very interesting. My comments on the car, as I say, undulations, so up and down hills, slightly unsettles the car with the weight being over the front end. Absolute massive torque in the lower end rev range, so you have to be careful. If you're not careful, you're going to spin that car straight away, and that's why it's got a risk indicator of 8. So 1.2 seconds difference. It's not in that 1 second window that I want to have in this. I'll probably look at either changing this car if all the other cars are ahead of the Aston Martin to have a bit more power in the car, just to get it like a little bit further, because to me it's a power car. It should be up there. It should be faster than the Alpha by the end of the straight. But yeah, very interesting. So I hope you enjoyed that little car profile of the Aston Martin. The Audi is next. That hopefully will be at weekend. These take me like 8 hours, 9 hours to edit and record and actually do the test. Not even including upload time. So hopefully it'll be at the weekend. If it's not, be early next week. And as I say, we're working through these cars as best as we can. Any questions, comments, criticisms, any changes you want to see, let me know. But that's it for now. There's a video playlist there if you want to watch the Alpha car profile. My logo's there if you want to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you give me a dislike, just let me know what you disliked. I love criticisms, because then I can improve the videos where possible. But that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.